Tuesday the 25th. Am I right, Pete?
That's right, Jeremy.
Peter Clayton behind the camera. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Welcome to the garage and the court of public opinion for another week. There's a bit to chew on. Look, I might start off with a fun fact. A fun fact. If you spend a bit of time on hold, you know, on the telephone, on hold, and you hate it, and that awful music they play to you, I tell you what, you're not alone. We spend, resentfully, 123 million, have you got that? 123 million hours a year on hold, on the phone, and that is just in Australia. Whoever came up with that? You know, the push 1, push 2, push 3, and then you have a whole other subsection that goes on, and that'll keep you running around the mulberry bush for hours. Anyway, just there's some comfort in knowing that we are not alone, and not alone in our disgust. No cost access to a GP. Wow, would have to be a winner, wouldn't it? Oh, we love free stuff, don't we? No cost access to a GP. Now, I can just see the 10,000 advisors gathered around Albo saying to him, let's see how the other side can knock that. Well, they, of course, immediately embraced it. But neither side is flush with details. But do we have the money? In fact, do we have the GPs? How long is it going to take to train them? And how much is that going to cost? And nothing, of course, is free. Like the renewables, we all pay, but there is an election coming. So we have to expect a fair bit of flim-flam before this thing is over. Anyone who could create this cost of living crisis and then say, elect us and we'll fix it, I mean, they did it. Elect us and we'll fix it. Why'd you do it in the first place? Anyone who believes in green hydrogen or free school halls or pink bats that somehow get people electrocuted, anyone who does all of that is just plain incompetent in my book. Frankly, I'm sorry. Government spending, by the way, is at its highest in the history of this country. The highest. Anyway, it really doesn't matter what Albanese or any of them promise. We know that they lie, and they won't pass the truth in political advertising legislation. God, they won't even write it. Which, of course, would lock them into delivering on what they say. So we know they are liars. Oh, they'd pass that. They'd pass it with great confidence. Politics is wonderful. If you could win the heart of a beautiful woman by using her money, we would all be very popular. That's what's happening, you know. To win popularity, these politicians will promise us all sorts of goodies, which will be bought, if they deliver, using our money. If you're not paying, you can almost promise anything, I guess. And you know, the media will be soft on asking the hard questions. For example, to pay 90% free doctors, that's 9 out of 10 visits, no co-payment. Will you benefit? Well, will you be lifting the Medicare levy to pay for this $8 billion expenditure? It's a journalist's question. Back comes the answer. We have no plans to raise the Medicare levy. No plans? Well, that doesn't mean they won't. You remember this man, Anthony Albanese, when asked hundreds and hundreds of times, will we get the legislated stage 3 tax cuts under Labor? Time and time and time and time again, he said, we have no plans to change a thing. Lies, lies, lies and more lies. No plans doesn't mean he won't. And of course he did. Just on that one issue, just that one moment in history, should tell you that you cannot believe or trust what he says. Weasel words are just that, weasel words. And by the way, there is no way that this government can deliver this promise. You know why? Because they can't force the doctors not to charge a co-payment. It's that simple. Look at childcare. They've put all this money into childcare. Everyone gets free childcare, even if you're earning $500,000 a year. And what happens? The price of childcare goes up in sync. Same thing will happen here. Medicare, whether supported by Liberal or Labor, remember, it doesn't matter. It is like childcare. Doesn't matter how much money, our money, is poured in, the cost will go up accordingly. It is the downfall, the totally predictable downfall, in my opinion, of socialism. This is when people realise that they are being conned and then asked to pay the bill. While these people in Canberra swan around the world, enjoy the high life, living high on the hog, which of course we all pay for. What a deal! Gee whiz. On the Insiders on Sunday, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, was talking very smoothly. He's a good talker. He was talking about the threatened American tariffs, which is all about local industry. He said, from memory, going back to 1952, Australia has run a trade surplus with the United States. Harry Truman was the president, he said. Well, I say amazing, sir. Truly amazing. You can remember 1952, but you can't remember 1975, when the Whitlam Labor government signed the Lima Declaration, which, and I quote, sold out the Australian people and manufacturing industry to third world countries. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the same people. But I don't think he remembers. Doesn't want to. And the journalist, of course, wouldn't have the temerity to ask. The largest industry fund in Australia, that is when I say that, the largest industry fund, union super fund, right, owned by the unions, and I'm talking about Australian Super, the Australian Super Fund, has been fined $27 million by ASIC, the regulator, for failing to merge multiple super accounts. Now, is that psychobabble for basically stealing money from the members? I don't know. And are these union super funds, industry funds, simply a giant slush fund for the Labor Party? Just asking. I don't think there are other journalists around who ask questions like that. We are here, by the way, with the best wishes of the Rising Sun Inn at 60 Bridge Street at Kensington. Have a talk to Grant if you're planning I don't know, it could be a function, a celebration of some kind, a product launch. It doesn't matter. If you're going up Kensington Road, the council, I imagine it's the council because it kind of looks official, they've got a sign directing you on Bridge Street to the Rising Sun Inn. Grant, that was, if you pulled that off, that's very good. Free advertising from the local council. I think that's excellent. But if you're not in the neighbourhood and you'd like to make a booking, lunch, dinner, enjoy the atmosphere of this marvellous old pub. This year's a very historic, significant year for them. It was built in 1845. Did I get that right, Pete? Was it 1845?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely old place. And Jim Elder, Elder Fine Art in Melbourne Street, North Adelaide, 106 and 110, two beautiful buildings. You can talk to Jim and his lovely wife Helen on 8267 2869. I memorised that, Jim. I'm very good at it. 82672869. Yes. I have trouble remembering the studio phone number, but not yours. Anyway, at the moment he would be putting together the first auction of the year, and he's looking for paintings of international and national importance. So if you think you have one, give him a call and he'll give you a free appraisal. Let's talk about the Ukraine war. Gee whiz. What a mess. The Ukraine war and this very strange Donald Trump backflip on foreign policy. The master of the deal could be doing something quite useful here. I don't know. When the clouds clear, up until now it's been the same. Day after day after day after day, terrible losses, little achieved, lots of money spent, wasted. A sort of awful First World War horror replayed in modern time. So what Trump is saying, I think, is worth thinking about. He's just not a great, he's just not a great diplomat. I mean, he might be wonderful at deals, but he doesn't know how to finesse the room, really. It comes out that he has said, give us access to half your rare earth minerals and we'll take care of your security. I mean, that's a Reader's Digest abbreviation. But that's basically what he's saying. He's also saying that the American people won't go on writing a blank check. And I think, being the President of the United States, he's responsible in saying that. The Americans shouldn't go on doing that and getting nothing back. On the weekend, just this weekend gone by, the President of the Congo, you know, the People's Republic of the Congo, God help, all these lefty socialist communist places, they're all republics. They're people's republics. Anyway, he has offered the United States ownership, not a 50-50 split, ownership of his country's minerals. You can look this up. The quid pro quo is that President Trump will have to come in and put an end to the war being waged in his country by the Rwanda-backed rebels. The Congo, by the way, holds more than half the world's cobalt and coltan, whatever the hell that is, substantial deposits of gold, copper, tin and lithium. Now, I do not see anything wrong with a simple quid pro quo. Nothing comes for free. And while you're listening to all the election promises coming up for the coming election, remember that. Nothing comes for free. A deal. You know, a deal. This is what he's offering Ukraine. You've been invited to help. Okay? The Americans have been invited to help. You've got rebel gangs creating havoc in your village, or whatever. I mean, this is just like the script for the Magnificent Seven. Do you know that? You know, he says, we'll ride into town, guns drawn, we'll round up the bad guys, we'll get rid of them, and in return, this is what we want. Now that plot is as old as American movies. And I think that sort of arrangement is a deal. America has been the international cop on the beat for centuries and never gets anything but criticism and a black eye. Some people might say that what he's suggested to the Ukraine is extortion. Running a protection racket. But hell, I simply call it a quid pro quo deal. You need help, we'll give it to you. Here is the price. I can't see anything wrong with it. Ring me on Friday at the dining room table and talk to me about that. We'll be there from 9 o'clock till 12. around the dining room table. Frank Pangello is going to be with me. Bob Day, Senator Bob Day will be with me. Professor Ian Plimer, and a whole lot of other guests too. I'm just waiting for confirmation on some of them. Here's something interesting. The state government's Office of Green Hydrogen, where the head, the CEO, earns more than the Premier. Well, shouldn't that be scrapped now that the government has abandoned the project in Whyalla? I mean, look at it. Is anyone working on supporting green hydrogen? Twiggy Forrest dropped his plans, dropped them cold. But this ideologically driven Labour government won't stop. No, 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 no. If you were listening to the show around the dining room table last Friday, we had Professor Plimer on the phone because he was out of town. And he lectured us chapter and verse on why the whole green energy thing was wrong and a failure waiting to be announced. What do the many people employed by the Office of Green Energy actually do, apart from being paid? A couple of things that you didn't know. Dan Andrews, former Victorian Premier, Labour Premier, is now an advisor to Anthony Albanese. Wow. Why would you want advice? Stop laughing, Pete. Why would you want advice from a man who had destroyed Victoria and guaranteed the defeat of a state Labour government next time around? Odd. And, oh, I like this one. This one. Oh, hang on a sec, I'll just grab this. Because I'll never get these figures right. It's about the world population. Because Pete and I and many others agree that if climate change is a problem, it's certainly nowhere near as big a problem as world population. But anyway, I digress. The world population is 8,300,610,062. 63, 64, and counting, but you know what I mean. Okay, let's just say 8.2 billion. People born of women, 8,300,610,000, and by now it's probably 200. People born of men, 0. Wow. Feel free to fact check that if you like, but I think I've got it right. It's amazing, isn't it? Here's another one. It takes twice as much time to build a house in Australia today as it did 10 years ago. Can you get your mind around that? When I dig into it, what am I told? Red tape, approvals, planning, rules, regulations. Why do we allow this nonsense? Why do we allow it? I mean, surely there are governments who sort of say, well, you just take a cane knife to it, get rid of all of the crap. Our absolutely feeble rebuke of China over their sabre rattling off the east coast of Australia. If we're looking to get respect from this most important trading partner, we have a thing or two to learn about them, and probably others. Now, you never negotiate out of fear, but you never fear to negotiate. Hard negotiating with a bully. They bully us flying in international airspace in the South China Sea, which we now officially call the North Australian Sea. But what they do, they come on down and they conduct live firing naval exercise just off the coast without any warning. What if we did that in the South China Sea or the North Australian Sea? What do you imagine they are trying to tell us in what they're doing? This is no coincidence in timing either. They're just trying to get our measure. How far can they go? Well, clearly, without the United States, the answer is all the way. On the Friday morning live streaming show, jeremycordeaux.com, Dr. John Brunei last week was most informative and interesting on this subject. We have a massive potential problem. How do we defend Australia? Small population, woke government who just doesn't get it. Thanks to the education system, the best country in the world, and we don't recognise it and preach it. We could not put an army together to defend it. Our people are not patriotic and proud. Well, not the younger generation. The older generation is? Yes, I think so. In our schools, they teach our children to be ashamed of ourselves and our past. Do we, or why do we, hand over our children to teachers or subversives with their own agenda? We don't have young people who will enlist. We can't even crew a submarine. I wonder why. We have underinvested in defence for ages. Both major parties. A huge landmass, rich in all the things that government dislikes, or this government, coal, gas, uranium, all the things that the entire world, however, want. Do we imagine that it hasn't occurred to China and others not to buy these things from us, just to come and take them? It would not be difficult, thanks to the woke left. We live in a dangerous, hungry, greedy, savage world. It certainly can be. But if America is going to protect us, and God, I hope that's right, as we have recently seen, they will not be doing it for free. And I don't blame them, and I don't think you should either. If they ride into town to save our skin, I don't know what the price is going to be, but I reckon it's worth paying. Time to get rid of woke and get real. Australia? Don't know how much time I've got, Pete.
You keep going.
I wanted to talk to you about, talking about schools, I wanted to talk to you about the National Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Board. It's a mouthful. I'd love to know who was on it. I'd love to know how many people were on it. Is that one of those Quango things? I don't know. ACARA, it's called ACARA, I think is the acronym for the board. They say proficiency levels for civics and citizenship are terrible. Less than a third of the students are proficient in or have any understanding of these important areas of our democracy. Now, these are the worst figures for 20 years, but with every test, if you'd like to go back, and they're not ashamed to publish, no, I think they're helpful in publishing the figures. If you go back over recent years, you can see a steady decline, year after year after year. Now, these are Year 10 students who, logic would say, should be a lot more knowledgeable about the world in which they live and the democracy that they would hopefully inherit and support. Yet more and more people are calling for this cohort, this age group, to be allowed to vote. Clearly they have no or little idea about politics or how our system works, our two houses of parliament, our democracy. Civics and citizenship is not even compulsory, damn well should be. In New South Wales, for example, it is a subject that is alternative to, I think oh golly, I did look it up, I think it's ethics. It's ethics. Oh, well, you teach ethics as well. Sure, it's more useful than trigonometry. It's amazing that something so fundamentally important to our system and our way of life is not given greater priority, either in our schools or our teaching trainer or training arrangements, our teaching colleges. This is the generation who will carry our democracy forward. They will be in charge of it. Yet clearly, they're not particularly enamored with it or knowledgeable of it. I blame the educators. Mum and Dad are basically working too hard to keep the damn wolf from the door, thanks to these cost of living pressures. Schools seem to be more interested in welcome to country, climate change, and hating our colonial past. More interested in that little grab bag than government, democracy, or our political system. It's an agenda, ladies and gentlemen, an agenda. Have I got time for one more, or should I get the hell out of here?
Yes, it's getting close.
It's getting close. All right. We're talking about kids. Kids. We all know what kids are like. People of my generation say things like, "What's the matter with kids today? Why can't they be like we were, perfect in every way?" But maybe we're all the same. Maybe kids over the generations are the same. But I can tell you one thing. We didn't have a thing called ADHD. Kids have a 300% increase. 300% increase in ADHD diagnoses, with no reason being given to us as to why. How easy is it to get that diagnosis? With adults, it's even higher. It's not 300, it's 450. And a huge delay in getting into a clinic, somewhere between 6 and 18 months. Huge demand, and few people who can help. Could it be something to do with the out-of-control NDIS? Could it? Where there are benefits and concessions if you can get a diagnosis. Some $40,000 a year, in fact. Is it easy to get that diagnosis? I don't know. My observation is that kids don't have any trouble concentrating on what they want to concentrate on, like their mobile phone or gaming. Here's the question. Is ADHD simply a lack of discipline? As I was growing up, there were naughty kids, there were disruptive kids, there were disobedient kids, there were clever kids, there were dumb kids. I think I was the dumb kid. Even spoiled brats. No such thing as ADHD. We love putting labels on things, categorizing things, putting people in little boxes. You leave your child, as we were talking about the other day, you leave your child in a hot car, you're not criminally negligent or neglectful. You're suffering from forgotten baby syndrome. I think it's all, frankly, a lot of nonsense. A lot of nonsense. Shall we look at some dates? Okay, all right. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. I'll get my glasses and see what we remember the day for. I hope it's a good day for you, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. February 25, 1814 was the year. Australia's first currency. Do you know what it was, Pete?
No.
The holy dollar. Why it had a hole in it, I don't know. The holy dollar, introduced, made of Spanish pieces of 8 with the centre stamped out for some reason. That was the colony of New South Wales. No currency up until this day, 1814. Maybe that's when all the trouble began. Because the Aboriginals never had any currency and they got on okay for 60,000 years, they keep telling us. Donald Bradman, Australian cricket batsman and captain, 52 tests, 6,996 runs. He dies of pneumonia. I only had the pleasure of meeting him once, interviewing him once. He signed everything, you know. He's a funny man. He said there were two things you could do with his sort of fame. You could sign almost nothing, and then everything you signed would be terribly valuable. Or you could sign everything and just come back to the people. And he chose the latter. Sir Donald Bradman died on this day in 2001. Frank Sinatra performs his final concert, a live audience of 1,200 select guests at the Palm Desert Marriott Ballroom in Palm Desert, California, on the closing night of his charity golf tournament. That was his swan song. This day in 1995. George Harrison, British guitarist, singer, songwriter, sitar player as well. The Beatles, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Here Comes the Sun. The Travelling Wilburys. He was great in the Travelling Wilburys. The Dalai Lama flees Tibet in 1910. Tennessee Williams, the American playwright, dies at 71, this day in 83. Oh, here's one for you, Pete. Samuel Colt patents his first multi-shot revolving cylinder revolver, enabling the firearm to be fired multiple times without reloading. Do you know what the year was?
Oh, I reckon it was it was 1840s, was it?
No, earlier. 1836, because that would have been either the Navy or the Army, wouldn't it?
It was a Whitneyville Walker, I think, something like that. No, the Patterson Colt.
Oh, okay. 1836, the first revolving, which revolutionised.
The Patterson Colt.
Yeah. Yep, I think we'd better leave it there. The first performing monkey exhibited in America, admission 1 cent. The year was 1751. I love the weird ones. Bread in Berlin on this day in 1923 was selling for 2,000 marks. Just a loaf of bread. Anyway, thank you very much for being with us, and as I say, if it is your birthday, happy birthday. May it be a really nice one. I hope you can join us on Friday. Interesting guests, your phone calls as well, around the dining room table, live streaming, jeremycordeaux.com for 3 hours. Lots of fun. And I'll see you next Tuesday with another posting on Facebook, and our dear friend Andy Martin will pop it out on all of those podcasting venues. One way or the other, thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. Believe in yourself, and we'll see you Friday and next week. Bye for now.